Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Whittem. I'm the Director of Communications for the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, and thanks for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started right on time here at noon, just to make sure we have enough time for a robust conversation. This is the latest in our education series. We do these about 8 or 9 times a year. And a lot of our education series are about really big picture concepts. It's about, supportive housing. It's about healthcare and homelessness. Sometimes we do really top-down information, like what's happening at the federal level and state level and how is it impacting our sector. And so some of those have come out this year. They're available on our YouTube page. But for this one, we're really responding to what we have heard from individuals who respond to us after each of our sessions or send us emails. What we hear so often is people say, what can I do as an individual, right? Not everyone is always looking to engage fully in a large volunteer effort or works in the sector. What can people do day to day, person to person, to help those experiencing homelessness? And that includes people experiencing homelessness themselves, are all part of our community and helping. So this is sort of for housed people, for unhoused people, for anyone in Colorado who's looking sort of at a more of a neighbor to neighbor, person to person approach. And so while this isn't necessarily what CCH does all the time, we're more of a healthcare, housing, supportive services advocacy organization. We're really excited about today's session and to open it up to some experts in the field who are joining us today. So, setting the stage, as we mentioned, that we've been doing a lot of sort of big things lately. The big bill we did why integrated health is critical to solving homelessness is one of our education series sessions. Upstream solutions, but we're really responding to what folks are asking for. So these are hyper local solutions and mindset shifts that we're going to be discussing today. We do want to mention this is not exhaustive. We had a list of probably 20, 25 orgs and individuals that we thought about for this. We ended up with a small handful. So, there's so many others that we aren't able to highlight here. But if this goes well, maybe next year we get a whole new panel and do it again. So, please stay engaged and tell us how we can always answer your questions and do the purpose of this session and this series. So now I'm going to hand it to Gabriella Visani, who is often our magical person behind the scenes, making all the slides work and getting everyone sorted. You probably get reminder emails from her. So today she's going to do our presentation with a bit of background information and then hand it back to me for our panel. So to you, Gabriella. Oh, sorry. Gabriella's our internal communications manager. Forgot your title.
Thank you so much, Alexis, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited to talk about this today because it's a question that, like Alexis said, I often manage the back end of our education series, and everybody's always asking, what can I do to help? Well, how can I help? How can I get involved? So today we'll talk just briefly about some examples of neighbors who might be around you that might be experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness in ways that you might not be aware of, as well as some common misconceptions about who is and who is not experiencing homelessness. We'll do some excellent learning from our expert panelists who have all been chosen because they are really good neighbors in the truest sense of the word to everyone. And then we'll strategize together on how we can create communities that work a little bit better for all of us, whether we're housed or unhoused, or somewhere in between, because we know that things are kind of difficult right now. There's a lot of things that are not predictable, and so we want to make communities and neighborhoods that are predictable for all of us and support each other when we can. So just to check in on this, we'll go quick baseline over some numbers. We know that numbers and statistics are not representative of the people that they reflect. However, they do give us a picture of the scope of the crisis of homelessness that we face in Colorado, as well as some of the more nuanced approach to the data that we can take to sort of understand who needs our help and what can we do to support each other. So according to the Homeless Management and Information Systems data, 52,000 people, more than 52,000 people accessed homelessness services in 2024. So we think that that's a fairly accurate representation of the people accessing services, not fully reflective of the people in crisis. 4,000 families were accessing services, 3,400 veterans experienced homelessness, and 3,700 youth experienced homelessness. those are some demographics that we think are interesting to sort of set the stage for who are we talking about and what can we do to support each other. And one demographic that I'd really like to turn our attention to today is that 8,500 individuals experienced homelessness in 2024 for the first time last year. They were newly unhoused. This could be someone who lived down the hall from me, or it could be someone who lived across the street from you. That's someone who in 2023 was housed and in 2024 was then accessing services. So I think with the threats to funding and healthcare and housing under the current presidential administration and just difficult times generally, it's really important to counter this anti-homelessness rhetoric and support our local communities because we have more people than ever experiencing homelessness. So now that we've talked a little bit about some of the data, I'd like to actually talk about people and these are some of composites of common types of people that are experiencing homelessness right around us. So let's take Cal, for example. He's about 67 years old. He lives in Aurora. He stays predominantly at a men's shelter, has some medical concerns that he gets addressed there, and he's been unhoused for 6 months on Social Security. He's experiencing what we would call literal homelessness. We also might have someone like Dante, who's at risk of homelessness in Colorado Springs. He's about 26. His rent just got raised. He has fluctuating work hours. He's in a degree program where he's not able to keep his work and his school work the same. So sometimes he accesses SNAP or food stamps, as sometimes they're called, and sometimes visits the food bank when money is a little bit tight. He would be considered at risk of homelessness. We can also meet Elsa, who lives in Glenwood Springs. So Elsa is 19, has been in the foster system since they were age 14, and just recently left the foster system and is living with some friends on and off, works as a barista, and is trying to just kind of make, a different path for themselves. And they're homeless under what we would consider another federal statute, but someone who you might not in your day-to-day life know that they're experiencing homelessness, but this person is technically experiencing homelessness as well. Another very common situation that we encounter in Colorado and across the country is a situation like Becca and Byron's. Becca's 26. They live in Alamosa. They recently lost their housing 4 months ago, fleeing a domestic violence and abusive partner situation. They primarily live in their car so they can be close to Byron's school, and he's in school full time, while Becca also works full time. So they're using these public facilities, libraries, the schools to meet their basic needs, and are trying to achieve subsidized housing on a very limited income. And then you have someone like Aaron who is experiencing unsheltered homelessness or chronic homelessness. So Aaron is 38. He was working in construction for a long time and then lost his job due to an injury over a decade ago. He receives disability income, but lives unsheltered with his service dog, Milo, because some of the shelters don't accommodate some of his disabilities, and he's unable to live in the shelters most of the time, so lives outside and is trying to address some of his medical conditions as well as employment status. So those who are experiencing kind of this chronic unsheltered homelessness are often the most visible and often have an outside impact not only on funding and things like that, but also public perception of the homelessness crisis. If you hear people talking about homelessness, oftentimes they're talking about people living in unsheltered homelessness. We believe that all homelessness is something that we can address and something that we can work to support each other in. And unsheltered homelessness often has an outsized impact on the types of services that get discussed. So today we're trying to broaden our concepts and work together to educate each other. So now that we talked through some of these different types of homelessness experiences, how you might be encountering and interacting with people on a day-to-day basis who might need support related to housing and homelessness, I want to just kick us off with this interactive kind of audience experience of, as we begin this session, how prepared would you right now feel to assist a neighbor experiencing or at risk of homelessness? I'm going to open up this Zoom poll. You could just think about it. There's no wrong answers. we're just trying to get a baseline so that as we start a discussion with our experts, we can try to grow. Great. We've got some folks saying somewhat prepared. I'm getting the answers as they come in. You'll see them in just a minute. We have some people saying that they feel very unprepared. A lot of folks saying they feel somewhat prepared or they're unsure. I'll give it about just 30 more seconds. You can think about if someone said, I'm falling behind on my rent, would you know where to refer them to? Or if someone was outside asking for support on a cold night, would you know what to do in that situation? Just kind of thinking through that. Okay, great. I'll close it out in about 10 seconds. Thanks so much for everyone responding. We've got a lot of folks in here. Great. So as you can see here, we have kind of a range of people some feeling very unprepared, some people feeling very prepared, and most being in that somewhat range. And I think if I had to answer that question, it would be dependent on the situation. So we're going to cover kind of a big range of situations today. So before I turn it back to Alexis and to our expert panelists, I just want to direct you to some of these resources, which we will share out. These are what we've started to compile for our community education and community action. We've been asked this question many times, what can we do to help? Not all of us can provide housing in the way that, have an apartment complex and provide housing to people. But we can do things in the day-to-day, and we've been starting to build this database of resources on our community action and community education pages. We also have a rent assistance page where we refer people to. That's actually our most requested page on our website. We also have a partnership with 211 Colorado, which is sort of a major database that you can refer people to. My friend Ben helps people navigate their benefits and what benefits they might have access to. And then we also partner with some organizations to provide immigration resources and rights, although that's not a service that we provide specifically at CCH. So we wanted to just start here with the baseline of this is a growing list of resources and supports, and we know that it goes far beyond this, but we've already started to build this support system that we refer folks to externally, and we're so excited to hear from some panelists who are doing some incredible work in the community. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to Alexis, who's going to introduce our panelists. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to hearing and learning from you.
Thanks so much, Gabriella. Great. I'm just going to do a quick little intro on everyone and then we'll get going. So I'll start with Crystal Archuletta, who has turned her journey of struggle into a story of hope using her life experiences to uplift and serve others. Through her work with Catholic Charities Works and Project Apollo, she inspires change by showing that healing and second chances are always possible. Welcome, Crystal. Next, we have Ian Stitt, who is the executive director of Network Coffee House, a 43-year-old nonprofit organization dedicated to serving individuals experiencing homelessness in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Denver, with a focus on affirming the dignity of all people and combating relational poverty in sustainable and productive ways. Ian has spent over 10 years working in most areas of homeless services. Through these experiences, he has played a key role in implementing innovative solutions to homelessness, such as the Safe Outdoor Space Program, developing and managing highly successful homeless resolution programs, and leading an organization dedicated to a community-based response to homelessness. Welcome, Ian. Next, we have Amelia Warriner, who is the social media marketing and partnerships administrator at Same Cafe. Amelia received her Bachelor's of Science in General Health with a minor in sociology from the University of Alabama and her master's certificate in health, humanities, and ethics from the University of Colorado Anschutz. She has lived in Denver for 10 years and loves her dog Linguini and all 6 of her chickens. Brittni-Joy Ware is originally from Denver and moved back home from a life abroad and now serves as the executive director of Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods, Denver's oldest, largest registered neighborhood organization in the state. She has an international master's degree from the University of Roehampton, London campus, and moved back stateside to continue making impact in the community she loves. Brittni-Joy's focus is on reteaching the beauty of humanness and building community relationships one smile at a time. And finally, we're very excited to have Ducky joining us. Ducky is a new addition, so I don't have as much information on him or the photo, but we're going to get to know him through this process. So Ducky is a resident of one of the Colorado Village Collaborative La Paz micro community. Ducky works to positively impact his Denver neighborhood through individual relationships with neighbors. And joining Ducky, we have Hannah Dew of the Colorado Village Collaborative. So welcome to Hannah and Ducky, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I wanted to start with the first question to Brittany. Brittany, neighborhood groups and associations are often thought of as anti-homelessness in response to many things, including unsheltered neighbors, hosting safe outdoor spaces, building new affordable housing, and more. How do you all at Chun or Capitol Hill United Neighborhoods work to counter the sort of not in my backyard or NIMBY sentiments and instead include neighbors experiencing homelessness as part of Denver's Capitol Hill neighborhood?
Yeah, so at Chun, basically, our main focus is to build community. And we have different opportunities to have conversations with our neighbors about what that looks like. One of the newest series that we opened this year was called Fireside Chats. And it was to kind of counteract exactly what you're saying. We want to express to our community that people that are unhoused are your neighbors too. And so you have to rethink what your neighborhood and your community actually is when we start to plan out what we're going to do. So even some of the things that we do now, we give out seed awards to different organizations that support things like countering homelessness. We also try to make sure that we support other organizations that are doing the work. And in addition to that, we try to keep connections. For example, I used to work really closely with the Denver Voice and try to keep those connections so that we continue the cycle of everyone's in this community, everyone is a neighbor. How do we make sure that everyone's okay? Another thing that we did recently was we actually did a missing middle housing tour where we talked about affordable housing and ways that we can literally look at our neighborhood, Capitol Hill specifically, but we say greater Capitol Hill, and look at the different housing projects that might have new zoning, but how can we as a community change that so that our community can once again afford to live in the city that they love?
Thank you so much. I really love how much you had very specific examples because, while we know generally what Chun does, I don't know those specifics. So I really appreciate you coming out with those, especially because there's so many other neighborhood groups in Denver and throughout the state that don't always, know where to start. So thank you. Ian, I wanted to go to you next. You started out as a volunteer at the network and now are executive director, and it's been around 43 years, so I didn't even know that. Great to learn. Can you tell us a little bit more about like what the network is and how you all provide what you call a hub for friendship and safe redemptive relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I started out as an outreach worker coming to network to serve the individuals who are accessing network services and providing them access to the resources that everyone's entitled to escape homelessness and to transition towards stability. And through my interactions, I started to uh, become a volunteer, and through that, I became a staff member, and I continue to be here till now. And more to the point, Network is a hospitality house. So Network is a place, that third space for folks to access a space that's not home, a space that's not work, a place where people can just be, where all assumptions of the world are stripped of you. So you'd be having your best day or your worst day. You could be the richest person or the poorest person in the world, and you're on equal footing at Network. And we really use that relational standpoint to address the inequities of this world. And by building the relationships that we have with our folks, we can help them access services that they are nervous or unable to access themselves.
And Ian, as someone, I'll tell you this, I haven't actually been to the network. So what does it look like? Like if I'm a person who comes in, what are those sort of like services and opportunities that people have when they're there? I mean, sounds like it's a great general third space, but like in terms of services, how does that work in your space?
Absolutely. So everything that we offer is free. Being that we're a coffee house, we have locally roasted coffee that's always on tap. Um, we provide a small clothing bank. We have a brand new shower that people can have, which is a private shower. We have bathrooms, we have hygiene supplies, and more recently, we have a resource navigation program that's helping folks who we see consistently access stability and gain those benefits and resources so they can leave homelessness and become a member of the community that they want to be. And so what that looks like is that people can come in and sit at a table. They could play chess, they could play checkers or backgammon, or they can just hang out. It's a very kitschy place. There's a lot of client art on the wall. So we have a very interesting dichotomy of pictures and art, and it really is just a place for people to be. And our folks really claim it as theirs. It becomes their home. And so it is very eclectic, but also very warm. The being that we've been around for 43 years, the walls are filled with love and acceptance. And so that's what our folks come to get.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Absolutely.
Amelia, I wanted to turn to you. We know that many businesses engage in anti-homeless efforts, including hostile architecture, limiting bathroom and water access, and more. On the other hand, So All May Eat, or Same Cafe, operates with a participation model. So can you tell us a little bit more about how your model works and how it sort of influences people's mindsets who come there and use the services?
Definitely. So Same Cafe is a participation-based cafe on East Colfax between Race and Penn Street. It's open between Monday and Friday, 11 a.m. to 2:30. And the way that works is people can come in, volunteer for 30 minutes for a meal, or they can donate any amount of money, or you can bring in fresh produce to trade for your meal. So you got 3 different participation options. So everyone, no matter what, has the ability to participate for a meal at Same. The way that Same also works is we are very accepting, very non-judgmental. I love how Ian said third space. We do try to be that third space because what we try to do is build community through healthy food access. Because everyone is invited to our table, we have a no tolerance policy for racism, misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia, all the phobias, ableism, all of that. So we try to keep it like a safe space, third space for literally everyone. When it comes to volunteer tasks, we try to also be inclusive. We have things that people can do who are either mobility challenged or, let's say, may have hygiene restrictions, means they can't be in the kitchen. But we have all sorts of tasks that can be done. And what's so great about that is that anyone that comes in, means or not, feels like they have a dignified experience there, especially if you're giving back, you're helping out, or you're helping create the meal that goes to the next person. And so it's that kind of community building and dignity building that's really important. Same. In terms of how it influences others, it's definitely a unique model. So when you look at like for-profit businesses, it could be tough to incorporate. But where it really changes people's aspects is when people volunteer. We accept community service, so court-ordered community service people. And so it's fun to watch them come in and also experience our space. And then we have regular volunteers with means that come in, and to have them working alongside people who were ex-incarcerated, or people who are experiencing homelessness, or people who are in the system in any way. It's great to have them. It's very humanizing in the way that you get to work directly with people. And then it helps people feel valued when they're participating, and then also having those connections with people they may not ever have the experience to connect with. And we hope that people take that outside of the cafe, and that same kind of an empathy, connection, the learning like the learning they did with the person, take that outside of the cafe and continue to treat others in that way, not outside or not inside.
Thanks so much, Amelia. That was really Great to learn all that. Appreciate it. I wanted to turn to Crystal. I feel like Crystal, I could probably ask you questions for like a whole session. You currently serve as an employment specialist with Catholic Charities of Southern Colorado, but you are also a founding board member of Project Apollo, a volunteer-led nonprofit in Pueblo, and also run the weekly drop-in for people of marginalized genders and sexualities at Rogue Support Network. So tell us a little bit more about, how these Pueblo organizations and individuals are working to address homelessness. I know we're very Denver centric in the rest of our panel, so I'm really looking forward to learning more about how things are there.
Thank you. So yes, so I do work for Catholic Charities of Southern Colorado. I run the Works program, which employs the unhoused. I currently partner with the city of Pueblo, Team Up to Cleanup crew. We go out a couple times a week in partnership with the city, and we remove trash. So each participant gets a $50 Walmart gift card, a sack lunch, and then has the ability to shower at the Pueblo shelter afterwards. If they're consistent with me, then I then move on towards a little bit of case management, getting their identification, whatever documentation they need, and then find permanent employment for them, along with housing solutions. I've had countless people that have came from the streets, some straight from DOC, that are now employed and have a completely different life. One of the main goals is for stability. And some of that's immediate with a meal. So you provide, food, and then they get to have the income. And then also they have dignity through the work, because they're going out and earning, it's a gift card, but they're earning it. But it truly is providing an opportunity to rebuild lives through the Works program. Through Project Apollo, I am an active founding board member. We are a volunteer-led program. We provide street medicine to the unhoused weekly. So we have 2 different sites that we go out to. I run the Bessemer site. We provide food, clothing, hygiene, and a doctor every week. It's donation-based. So we are always in need of any supplies, but we've been able to provide all of the needs. We also offer harm reduction, survival support as far as, winter months are coming. So we need to, get warm gear and all of that. Our team with Project Apollo is built with all different people from all different walks of life. Some, like myself, have lived experience. So that brings a whole new different aspect to understanding and really, being able to be in the moment with people that are coming to access our services. And everything that we do is free. So there's never a charge to anybody at any time. And we really focus on meeting people where they are, wherever that is. If it's, your active user, or your, just like the slides showed, it could be, somebody that's has experienced domestic violence and, are on the streets for the first time, or even maybe new to the city and don't know where to access those resources. Or it could be your chronically unhoused member of the community as well. And the main thing is to have no judgment. So however you're coming to us, we're gonna, love you how you are. And it might just be sharing a cup of coffee with somebody and letting them know that they're not forgotten and they do matter. So, and that is one of the most powerful things that you can give somebody is hope. Through Pomegranate, so that's under the Rogue Support Network. Unfortunately, I have had to step back from the weekly daily operations of the program just because of everything else that I'm doing. I do support in any way that I can, whether that's through donations or community connections, but it is a safe space for people of marginalized genders and sexualities to come and have the same things basically. We provide food, clothing, hygiene, some wraparound services as well, and just a place to be with, as you are, who you are, without any labels, whatever, you're accepted. And even if it's just for that hour out of the week, it's somebody accepts you who you are. And at the end of the day, it's the small things. We see them as small things, but they can make a huge impact to somebody that hasn't had anybody care for a really long time.
Thank you so much, Crystal. And I really appreciate how, I mean, Pueblo is a significantly sized city, but it's much smaller than Denver, and how you're talking about multiple programs, some of which are very large and in cooperation with the city, and some are fully volunteer run. But I love that there's an opportunity for anyone to get engaged. You could donate, you can volunteer, that there's always something, and there's always something in every community. And it's just sometimes a matter of figuring out who's doing that work. Or if no one is anymore, maybe that's an opportunity to step up. There's always a space that can be filled, particularly for marginalized folks. I'll also just comment real quickly in the chat that there's some positive notes about Same Cafe in there. So we have at least two people saying the food is very good. And I'm hearing from Amelia that it's made scratch every morning. So for those of you who haven't been on Colfax, we know our Colfax businesses need a little support right now with all the construction. Ducky, thank you for being so patient. I know that the last person to get a question in the first round is always waiting and waiting. So thank you so much for joining. What we wanted to talk to you about is that there's often a misconception that only housed neighbors can contribute to communities, and that people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness or in temporary housing are always the ones benefiting from a neighborhood and not giving back. And so when we talked to Colorado Village Collaborative, they suggested that you would be a great person to speak to as someone who is living in a safe outdoor space and contributing to your neighborhood that you're in. So I was hoping you could share that with us.
Yeah, I go out in the neighborhood and help people with their yards and stuff. Mostly elderly people that can't do the work for themselves, and try to take the sting out of this place, because there's a lot of unknowns, and like a witch hunt, becomes a start, which you don't understand. Just sort of turns into a wildfire with people's minds. So I'm trying to go out there and break that stigma by action, just going out and doing positive things, and people can see you doing positive things. So that it sort of projects, that we do care about the community, and it's just taking baby steps towards it, and just basically having the communication skills, and just showing by action, and being responsible and taking merit for your actions. So that's pretty much the gist of it. We're just crawling forward and doing positive things, whatnot.
Can I ask how you got started doing that with like a specific neighbor, or are you just, do you love to do yard work? How did you get started in this relationship? Because I think what we're hearing from some other panelists is like how important those one-to-one relationships are, and talking to someone. So is that sort of how you started getting connected with some neighbors where you live, or how did it all start?
Well, I used to live in this community, and then I experienced homelessness, and unfortunately, I got stuck in front of my neighbor's house and with my 32-foot camp trailer. So I sort of frequented the area, and then the police would run me off. But I've known the individual for some years, and I told him, one day when I'm able, I'm going to come over and help you with your yard and get that done. And I followed through with it. So it's been an interesting little voyage we're on. But yeah, knowing somebody in the community previously definitely is how I got started.
Thanks so much, Ducky. And that's a thing that we mentioned sometimes in other sessions, is how often people stay in the communities that they're from, and that people have these misconceptions that folks like come to a new neighborhood or move to Denver, and that it's so often the case that people like to stay where they're from. And so that's really cool to know that you sort of had a relationship with this person in your community and then have maintained it over time. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Crystal, I sort of started this question. I alluded to it when we were wrapping up your last one, but we were talking about Pueblo, not being a small town. It's a city with over 110,000 people, but it is quite different than Denver and where our other panelists are from. And so we want to make sure we're making space for your perspective and maybe some other communities nearby. If you're working in, Southern Colorado for Catholic Charities, I'm sure you have a lot of experience. Do you have advice for others who live outside of Denver Metro and communities that may not have as much institutional support and so therefore might need to rely more on these types of neighbor assistance?
Yeah, absolutely. So in communities like Pueblo, where we don't have the same level of funding or infrastructure, like communities like Denver, relationships become our biggest resource. So some advice I guess I could have is to start small, but start together. Don't wait for a grant or like you were saying, like if it's not there, maybe we need to restart it, but really you can build change through connections. Even if it's sharing food, listening, learning people's names, that's huge, because the unhoused neighbors become so used to being invisible. So learn somebody's name, share a cup of coffee, and definitely treat everybody with dignity. And you'd be amazed at how much transformation can come out of that. Encouraging everybody to look at, like you mentioned, look at what already exists, build partnerships, and try to avoid duplicates, because you don't want to be out there doing the same thing, if you can, because it's just going to, make things complicated. So if you're interested in that, see if you can partner with them, if you can volunteer, if you can donate, if that's what something you're really passionate about. In smaller communities, collaboration is survival, whether it's a faith-based program or harm reduction, outreach, or even individuals. We each really hold a piece of the solution. And never underestimate the power of being consistent. So, especially with like Project Apollo, I know every one of my participants pretty much by name, if not by, just face. Every day there's new people coming to the site, but they know I'm going to be there. If it's raining, snowing, 105 degrees, they know I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there with a hot meal and whatever I can help with in the moment. And for some, it might just be that hot meal. But really, when you're consistent, that really makes a difference. And you will be known in the community very quickly if you're consistent. And also, I think one thing I can definitely say is don't make promises above your pay grade. So if you are unable to help with whatever that situation is, really, I mean, you can say, like, I will look into it. I'll try to help. Let's find some resources together, but just don't make promises that you can't keep. And really, in all of the efforts that I'm a part of and that people that I partner with, showing compassion and, again, consistency, we can create safety, stability, and hope. And I always say, hope is one of the most powerful things that you can give somebody that lives a life of hopelessness. And giving people hope, even one single person hope at a time, you would be surprised at the just abundance of life-changing miracles that you can see.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Our next question kind of goes off of that. Now that we've heard from all of our panelists, we would love if you could share some ideas and suggestions on how people can be involved, whether that's through what you do or other organizations. I've heard a lot, and we'll sort of make a little list for when we send this out, but practices of inclusivity and ways that in our everyday lives we can help folks out. And that's for whoever would like to start.
Yeah, I was actually going to just dovetail off of Crystal. I think one of the beautiful things about um, actually delving into what it means to be a good neighbor is identifying that you can just be good doing something small. And so recently I was asked, like, what's something that we can do for our, homeless or unhoused communities? And I was like, you're at the grocery store, buy some extra socks or some extra juices or some extra water or some extra chips. Make a baggie, have a community bagging party and just be able to drive around and pass some things out because usually you never know. The other thing that I think people often forget too is just because someone is unhoused doesn't necessarily mean they want your money. So sometimes it is as basic as, to Crystal's point, would you like to join me for a sandwich? And remembering that this is just a human like you who just had an unfortunate situation that you haven't gone through yet. And I think the fear oftentimes with people is like, oh my gosh, this is not someone I would normally interact with, when really it is. It's, to Gabriella's point at the beginning, this is someone that lived down the hall from you last year. And now it's just someone that really needs an extra help for something. Even for things like Chun, we're going to do a coat drive in November. We do partner with a lot of organizations too, and we do a lot of volunteering. So to that point, making sure that you're connecting with everyone so that you are building a small community that can support each other while you're struggling in whatever you're going through.
Thank you, Brittni. Let's go to Amelia next. Thanks.
Yeah, again, it just takes something small. I found that especially at the cafe, while people might be there to receive a meal, most people just want to be heard. They've got great stories. And if you want to hear some of the wildest things you'll ever hear in your life, just listen. That's mostly what people want or need, especially people who may not have a community or may not have someone to talk to ever, or is ignored all the time. It can truly change their day, their week, potentially their life sometimes when you just listen.
Thank you. Ian?
Yeah, I think it's what Amelia said is great, and as well as Brittni. I think the important thing to remember is that dignity and humanity are an important part of this. We otherize and demonize folks experiencing homelessness so much that they begin to behave in such a way because they internalize that. And so one of the ways that you can help fight that is by treating them with dignity and looking them in the eyes and approaching conversations with them, or even asking them to do something out of curiosity as opposed to out of being above them or trying to expect them to do what you're asking, right? It always is better if you ask first, as opposed through curiosity as opposed to demanding. I'd also put in there, like Amelia said, is getting information about your local nonprofits. The thing is that the smaller local nonprofits make the biggest impact in these communities, and they're also the least funded. And so finding those small, hyper local nonprofits and really investing yourself in one that you find is really something that feeds you, because that is how you can help make a difference on a small scale in your community more effectively. And you can feel like a valued member of that as well.
Thank you. Crystal or Ducky, no pressure, but if you wanted to jump in.
Sure. I don't really know how the hand raising thing works, but I think Brittni mentioned asking. So I think that's really, really important. Not just assuming what somebody might need or what they want, asking and listening, because like Brittni said, not everybody wants your money. Not everybody has the same needs. And so just having a conversation with somebody, and they might not need anything. What they might need at that moment is for a conversation, is for, somebody to really be listening and not listening to respond, just listening in the moment, wherever that might be. And having the little packs as you're driving around. We all drive probably pretty much, and you know, um, I drive around on Fridays and hand out food, but also being able to have those resources. Socks are like you would not. We all hated it when we got socks for Christmas, but I'm telling you, as an adult, if somebody gives me a pair of clean socks, I that's a good day, you know. And we are just people, and we're all people. It doesn't matter what label you are, or you know, whatever society is saying. At the end of the day, I'm a person, you're a person, and unhoused people are people.
Thank you. Ducky, just if you want to participate, and if not, totally fine, up to you. Okay, I'm gonna go on. Oh, wait, there we go. Hey.
Ducky said he's good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're very casual here, so I appreciate it though. So we're gonna do a little, excuse me, we are gonna do a little survey now to see if anybody wants to provide some information back to us of places that you go to, resources. You know, I've seen one in the chat for Earthlink's workshop program in Sunny Valley. So we are gonna compile all these and send them out when we do our follow-up email. But tell us sort of what you all know. We know that many people who are in our chat and participating are just as much experts. So we're going to give a little bit of time since you have to, you know, actually type it out. But yeah, what resources in your neighborhood would you refer somebody to if they were in need? Or what do you do? Another way you could answer it is, what do you do? So Crystal's mentioning of winter resources is super helpful, and just having packs in your car. We had a winter homelessness ed series a couple years ago that I think is still quite helpful if you find it on our YouTube. So yeah, what in your neighborhood, or what do you personally do that is helpful to your neighbors?
That poll should be open on your screen, so we see some responses coming in. So we'll give people some time to think through it. What would you do if you were in those two scenarios that we kind of outlined, along with some of the other things that we've discussed? Someone says, I'm stuck on rent, I don't know what to do. They live down the hall from you, or you know, someone's outside and it's cold. What resources would you refer to somebody to? We're gonna gather your expertise, and then we're gonna keep discussing. So give everyone like 2 or 3 minutes. Yep, see some ideas coming in here.
Gabriella, I can't see the answers. Do you think you could speak to some of the ones that we're getting in that might be useful to share?
I can't quite see them until I see that someone has answered, but I don't see what they are, so
Got
it's a surprise and a mystery.
Okay, we both get to be surprised at what's come in.
Yeah, thank you all so much for adding information there. Give it about 1 more minute. Okay, we'll give it like 10 more seconds, and if you are in the middle of writing something and I cut you off, please feel free to just put it in the chat, or you can send it to us after as well. Great. All right, we got a great list of things here. Those results should be maybe popping up on your screen, but we got people referring to 211, neighbor to neighbor in Fort Collins and Loveland, people who are just talking to their neighbors and the gathering place. We've got Colorado Poverty Law Project, tenants unions, United Way of Pueblo County, lots of just different resources of different types of varieties, public libraries, community centers, Lakewood Cultural Center. There's just, this really reminds me that there are so many people doing this work already, and the work is just supporting each other. And I use the library almost every day. And it's a place where people can get resources of all different varieties. And so I think that that's a good example of this. This is a neighborhood approach to combating some of these more epidemic crises. So we will take these recommendations and synthesize them and share them back out too. But I'll turn it back over to Alexis. We're going to chat a little bit more about things.
Yeah, this question is sort of for all panelists. We're sort of wrapping up our pre-planned questions, and then we'll get to some that have come in from folks in the Q&A section or that have been otherwise added. So this is for anyone who wants to answer once again. Sort of what do we miss here? Our organization often works on upstream solutions like federal and state level advocacy, and today we talked about the personal ways to get involved. What did we miss? What else do you recommend for folks? Who do you learn from? Who do you look to?
I guess I'll jump in. For me personally, I really look towards the people who I'm asking the questions. I'm asking, what do you need? What can make your day better, your life better today? Or what did you need last week that you couldn't access or you didn't have that could have made a difference in your daily life last week? And for the most part, it's not going to be money. It's not going to be, those bigger things. Of course, we all need housing, that's a basic need. But a lot of times it's the littler things that we as everyday citizens can really help and make an impact on that person's life right now.
Okay, I'm gonna go off script a little bit, Brittany. I'm sorry. I'm gonna put you on I'm gonna put you under the gun here. I had a question and maybe you don't want to answer it, and so I'm sorry, just like fake that you had some sort of a issue with your Wi-Fi, but have you had any particular experiences of like NIMBYism or, working with people? I think Chun's been around a long time and been doing this work well, but do you like I take it that you may have a lot of experience with speaking to people who maybe aren't necessarily already on board in the way that maybe Ian and Amelia are having people come in who sort of already believe in their mission to some extent. You're someone who's maybe having to convince someone who's maybe more of a NIMBY person. How do you have advice on how to do that? I think we all have our talking points, but I would love to hear from you as an actual neighborhood association how you do that.
Yeah, we get that all the time. Especially at our various meetings. I mean, we have a extensive range of different things that we talk about, committees we have and things like that. And you come to an urban planning meeting or you come to even like a history matters meeting on the rail cars, and you might get someone that's like, and there's all these homeless people, so we'll never get it. And I think that one of the biggest things that I always remind people is, again, these are just humans that unfortunately lost their homes. We can't label all these homeless people. That's not okay. And recognizing, again, that there are different organizations in our community that support this. The other thing that we also run into sometimes also is people's concern for their kids or their concern for somebody walking around and they're just not safe. And oftentimes I meet those concerns with questions. Well, what would
Mm.
make you feel unsafe? Well, what about their behavior makes you feel like that? Oftentimes when you start to counter defensiveness or aggression or whatever with questions, you make people start to dig deeper into who they are and what they're actually analyzing. Why do you feel that way? Can you go a little further? Like, help me understand that a little bit more. We had a conversation about mini mobility recently at one of our conversations, our fireside chats. 2 months ago, we talked about transportation, and there was a woman that was very upset that people were using scooters and bikes and they couldn't just take the bus and everyone's crowding the streets. And I said, oftentimes people don't have access to cars or access to buying a bus pass. But I know that a lot of my friends who were unhoused had scooters, and it was what got them where they needed to go. And it's not fair for us to decide that because you don't like this mobility option, that it's not a good mobility option, because it provides the people that don't always have an opportunity to have. And I think like she heard me a little bit, and then I said, well, tell me more about why you think, or what could we do as a community to get people the bus passes that you're talking about? And it was silence. And I
Mhm.
said, well, think about it and let's have a chat about it. Because I think the other question becomes, how are you going to fix what you're saying is wrong? This is not a problem. This is something that can find a solution. Example, I'll use the Same Cafe, for example. We just gave Same Cafe a Good Neighbor Award, but we gave them that Good Neighbor Award because they're doing good work. So our organization is like, how do we celebrate you? How do we find the organizations that are doing the things, and how do we support you? And as I talked about at the beginning of this chat, we are a neighborhood organization, but we're one of the few that gives away grant money to those small nonprofits like Ian was talking about, because those small nonprofits are the ones that need it the most. So we are definitely in the business of how do we change your mind about what community looks like, but also let's introduce you to people that are changing our community, that are doing the work. And then let's give them some money just in case they need some extra help.
Thank you so much, Brittany. That was a great answer. And I think we find that so often that someone's discomfort is they'll say, well, I'm uncomfortable or I feel unsafe. But yeah, that extra question to ask is there something unsafe happening, or is someone simply without a house and you have sort of walked through their living room because they are staying where they can stay, that they're safe, right? They're not going to stay in the middle of the street. And so I think that that's really a wonderful suggestion, is like asking the questions as follow up. So I appreciate that. Ian?
Yeah, I'd like to tag on to that one of the often things that I say to folks is that it's okay to be frustrated by homelessness. Some of the behaviors that we experience as housed people from people who are experiencing homelessness isn't fun to experience. And I always try to encourage people to understand that oftentimes the behavior and the actions that we see from folks who are experiencing homelessness isn't because they just want to stick it to you. It's because it's a survival technique. It's helping them survive, or it is just a function of homelessness. And so really trying to encourage people to understand that homelessness is more complex than we understand with our just general assumptions, and that the best way to combat your NIMBYism, as it were, is to really dive deeper into what it is to be homeless and what is causing homelessness in our community. Because I think if you can better understand that it's not just criminals and drug addicts, but that these are people who have had bad experiences or have been unlucky or have had one thing happen, that we can see them as humans, and that we should all probably appreciate that we're all fairly close to being homeless ourselves in modern day. It's something like one paycheck away, two paychecks away. And that's something that we need to embrace and understand, that like you could be the person next to them if something unfortunate were to happen.
Thank you. Seeing what else we have in our suggestions, there was a a specific question about the impact of homelessness. Has it increased in the Cap Hill area recently? Brittany, I don't know if, yeah, I guess Ian, you're also in Cap Hill. Maybe talking a little bit about what's been happening with some of the all-in mile high policies the past year, or just anything that you've noticed has changed recently in Cap Hill, per this question from Carolyn.
Yeah, I know that for us, so Chun, our boundaries are really wide. And so we start from like First Avenue to 23rd and then Colorado
Mm.
Boulevard all the way to Broadway. So we're basically like Denver proper. And and the interesting thing about that is the my truth. The concerns aren't happening in Cherry Creek, and there's money in Cherry Creek. So I start to question, how are we as a community discussing where our funding is going, discussing how are we supporting the things, discussing how do we ensure that everyone is okay. And I think that it's very interesting because my board of directors is a mixed conglomerate of that First to 23rd, Colorado to Broadway. And you can also hear, to Ian's point, some of our older residents that live in Cherry Creek, they can't afford to live there much longer. They are on that brink of, so now what do I do? Because even if I sell my house or my condo, I can't purchase any property in Denver. And this is where I've lived my whole life. It is a wider conversation of community actually thinking beyond their self. And I say all of that to say that, yes, we're talking about homelessness now. And Ian brought up the best point. So many of us, and I say us included, are one or two paychecks away from not being able to afford our rent. And unfortunately, we do not live in a society where your landlord's going to be like, it's cool. 6 months is fine. They're going to kick you out because they want to find another tenant. So how do we as a community decide, let's support each other? Let's talk about it. Same Cafe is here. We have Crystal, who's in Pueblo. We've got Ian, who's right here. Shannon's here. Ducky's here. All of us should be able to connect after this and say, all right, guys, how am I going to support you? How are you going to support me? And what are the organizations you're supporting so I can support them? The real crux of all of this is building the community so we can't fail. We can't change the laws. We can't alter the design. We can't change how they're putting rocks in places where people could sleep. But we can address the concerns that we have together. And Chun is one of the oldest voices of the community. We are one of the few people that will write a letter to the governor and be like, nope, we don't like that. And usually the governor will listen. So again, this is a matter of how do we all come together to build that community to change what we know could be great. Okay, I'm stepping away. I'm stepping away.
Thank you. Yeah, this is so hard when we make these panels with like 5 people where I'm like, everybody could go forever and I'd be happy. But we try to respect time, so we got about 10 minutes left. I'm gonna ask a question that we have here. Somebody wants to know about the foundational question of sort of best practices for helping unhoused neighbors who approach for help. So in this case, we're talking about someone who is, not we're not sure what they want. Like they're approaching a car, they're approaching a person, and they're asking for help. So far, I mean, I'll sort of try to summarize some things that we've heard. We've heard listen, we've heard ask what they need specifically, that everyone's different. And we've heard a lot of acknowledging someone as a person, speaking to them, looking them in the eye, sort of, making sure that that person, responding to them, even if you don't have anything to give, can always be helpful. So, does anybody have sort of other thoughts on practices for helping people who approach us for help? And I'll go to Amelia.
Yeah, so one specific thing, especially with Same Cafe, people can come in and buy these meal tokens that if they approach your car, especially in the Capitol area, that's where we find the return of people who come and receive them come from. But they can come and they can purchase a meal token for, I think it is pay what you can, but we usually ask for like $15 to $18 per meal token. People can come in, purchase those, and hand them out to people. They have our address on them. And then once they get to St. Patrick, we have all sorts of resources. We have Narcan available. We have limited access to emergency contraceptive. We have feminine hygiene products. So while we function as just a restaurant, we do have the ability to help or direct people to other resources.
Very good question. I think, I don't know if I'm hearing it right, but I think maybe part of that question is if they're feeling safe. So I think that very much in any instance or circumstance is if you feel unsafe, then you have the right to make sure that you're safe or your children are safe if you're in the car. But I think just listening, and if you don't have the capacity to give whatever they're asking, then knowing the resources in your neighborhood, in your town, being able to direct them to the exact location of, hey, I don't have anything to give today, and that might be really hard at a stoplight, but knowing the resources and directing them to those resources is huge. And just being polite too. A lot of times we're in a rush, I'm in a rush, we want to roll our window up and not make eye contact, or and I try to always make eye contact, wave, say I'm sorry, or I can't help today, because like it's been said many times today, we all live, a lot of us live paycheck to paycheck. I do have a family myself, but just treating them like a person. But it is always okay to make sure that you're in a safe situation to be able to, provide services.
Okay. We also had a comment from Leslie asking about if we can create a small bullet point flyer of resources or things that people have discussed here. And so that is definitely something for us to look into. I will say, as a large organization, the coalition has different resources sometimes at different locations. So like what people need at Stout Street or 48th or West End at our health centers may be different than what people who are in our permanent supportive or transitional or income restricted housing need. So we do often, Gabriella and I are working on a very large effort to figure out the best place to always have the same up-to-date resources, and then also the best way to give it to people. Many of our staff, you'll see, have sheets that they print, because a lot of times for clients it's not that useful to have a QR code or different other ways to access. Sometimes it is a piece of paper. So Leslie, I appreciate that, and you sharing that you were without housing for 19 months and used services at Stout Street. And I do think there are ways we can work on making these types of resources more available to folks, and definitely something for us to talk to with other staff. I think we're getting up at the end of time, and I think that's sort of the the end of our questions that we received. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap up. One thing I do want to plug is that we do have our vigil on December 21st coming up, and with that we are doing sort of a neighbor project where we're partnering with the Homeless Memorial Blanket Project, and people are making blankets. So it's a national organization that we're partnering with this year. So in addition to our usual vigil that honors everyone who passed away in the preceding year in the Denver metro area, we're also going to have this sort of combination art installation and event happening with those folks. So if you want to learn more, we'll have that in the follow-up email, and it's on our website. You can sew a blanket, you can put together a blanket. We also will be handing them out at the end to organizations and individuals. So that's December 21st. And then we do have our next education series next month about hunger and food insecurity. So please do register for that. Gabriella, you're off mute. Did I forget something? Did you want to add?
Yeah, just a few things that came in the chat. It's kind of hard for us to
Oh,
balance
thank you.
both. So I just wanted to highlight some things that folks may not have seen, which is that Ducky shared that just asking what someone needs in a kind manner is the best approach to chatting with someone. I often encounter this. Sometimes I don't have cash, but I have some like leftover sunglasses and it's sunny outside. So I'll say, hey, do you need a pair of sunglasses? And most times people do. So if you just have things on hand, or if you don't have things on hand, you can just connect in your mutual experience of cold weather. If it's cold outside, probably someone needs something extra to be staying outside all the time. So just kind of connecting on a shared human level of what do you need? If I don't have anything, I'll just say, hope you have a great day, stay safe out there, and just try to connect with them. Usually it's the same people stay in the same areas. So I try to come back and say, oh, hey, now I have a blanket or I have something to connect with someone about. But and Ian wrote also that if arresting and ticketing homelessness were a successful way to solve homelessness, we would have already arrested and ticketed our way out of homelessness. So we are in total agreement that criminalizing perpetuates and deepens homelessness. So one of the best things that you can do is not criminalize your unhoused neighbors. If you see them doing something that feels uncomfortable or unsafe to you, you can call STAR. You can call, there's a variety of different resources that we can share that are often a better alternative to calling the police, because often it's not something that the police need to be involved in. If people are using substances in my apartment complex, people don't call the police on them unless they're causing a disturbance. If people are using substances outside on my street, people often call the police because unhoused people have nowhere else to use substances. So I just maybe encourage folks. I don't think many of the people on this webinar who are encouraging how to be a good neighbor are the ones maybe perpetuating that behavior. But maybe if you hear someone saying, hey, I'm going to call the police, ask those questions like Brittni was saying. Well, why do the police need to come to intervene in something that's making a situation unsafe? Or is there something else we can do to support each other? Because criminalizing often makes the situation worse for everybody involved. That's a whole different topic. But the last thing that I want to talk about, Alexis mentioned the blanket partnership that we're doing for our Memorial Vigil, as well as our hunger and food injustice ed series coming up next. But we wanted to close out with the final poll. We have just one more poll question, just checking in. How prepared do you now feel? Now that we've talked a little bit more, how would you feel experiencing if you encounter someone who is at risk of or experiencing homelessness? How prepared do you now feel after today's session? Keeping in mind that you will also receive some resources as follow-ups and now have all these organizations, same cafe, the Network Coffee House, Chun, we have organizations in Pueblo, all the places mentioned, Jeffco Action Center, all the different places that people mentioned. We just want to know if this supported you in this question we get all the time. How can I help? We really appreciate you coming and we're doing a lot of work to support this effort, but we know there's so much that goes undone, and our power is really in our neighborhood. So yeah, if you all just want to answer that question, and then we will catch you on the next education series in November.
Great. Gabriella, do you want to share? I'm sorry, I can't see if you're sharing or not with the poll.
Oh, yes, I will. And
Okay.
it looks like we are
Great.
very prepared and somewhat prepared. So we've moved the needle a little bit, which is great. And
Great.
thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate your time. And we will see you next time.